I would like to thank Michel Danino and all the organizers of the conference. The title is From the Great Drought to the Mahabharata War, but this is the chronological sequence, but actually we will start from the Mahabharata War. I will propose some comparisons with of Vedas, Mahabharata and Puranas. So the date of the Mahabharata War is important because all the dynastic lists reconstructed by Pargeter in ancient Indian historical tradition finish with the battle of the Mahabharata. And because there are some chronological observations in the Puranas about the period between the birth of the king Parikshit that happened soon after the birth of an early historic dynasty, that of the Nandas. Unfortunately, this date is not very sure, but it gives an approximate period. So this period between Parikshit and Nanda, Mahapadma Nanda, is 1050 years in Matsyavayam Brahmanda Purana. So this is the main reading. If we take Chandragupta around 321 BC, we should add 22 years if we follow the Mahavansa, maximum 100 years if we follow the Puranas. And so we reach maximum 424 BC for the coronation of Mahapadmananda, and we should add 1050 years. And so we arrive at the date between 1470, 1400 BC. This is confirmed also from the description of astronomical fact, the movement of the line of Saptarshis. So this line is between Ursa Major, Alpha and Beta, that at the birth of Parikshit was in Maga. That is the 10th nakshatra, and remains in conjunction with the same nakshatra for 100 years. And the Nanda strain with the nakshatra Purvashada, that is the 20th. And so the period is around 1000 years. And another astronomical observation is calculated by Bhattacharya, for instance, in the difference between the situation of the battle described in the poem, when the beginning of the battle is placed in the new moon, when the sun was in the Asterim is Nakshatra, and 67 days later there is a winter solstice. So calculating this, he reaches a date of 1432 BCE. According to Koch, a more precise result should be 1470 BCE. And archaeologically, we can make a comparison. The main area of the post-urban times, as said by Posse, is Punjab, Haryana, northern Rajasthan, western Uttar Pradesh, which corresponds quite well to Mahabharata. And particularly in the late 15th century BCE, we have in the area of Kurukshetra, so present Haryana, late Harappan settlements. And particularly in Bhagavapura, we have also this overlap possibly with painted grey. And according to Bibilal, we know this painted grey was associated with the Mahabharata period because it is found in Indraprastha, Hastinapura, Haichabi. But we have also in the same sites the ochre colored pottery in the previous period, so during the second millennium BCE. Particularly about Indraprastha, there are some later Harappan sites too. Puranakila, I've seen there are new excavations, but the painted level has not been found in a stratigraphical position, but we can see that in the area there are some later Harappan levels of 1500, 1200 BC, possibly, according to Upinder Singh. And so the period also would match, also because the area was newly colonized according to the poem. So the Pandavas also had to burn the forest of Kandavana. And very important is the site of Dvaraka, the capital of Krishna, that was covered by the sea 36 years after the battle, according to the poem. And S.R. Rao identified it with the submerged town found next to the island of Bedwarka. And he found also an inscribed shirt dated 3520 BP. And there is lustrous red ware dated up to 1400 BC and cassit ware also of the same period. And so he said it is possible to postulate on structural, ceramic, and inscriptional evidence that Dwarka was built in the 15th century BC and was submerged within 100 years. So it was submerged 36 years after the battle. So this would be around 1400 BC, according to this chronology. And at the same time, the remaining Yādavas abandoned Kathiawar towards Indraprastha after a massacre of the clans called Vrishni, Andaka, and Bhoja. So most late Harappan sites in Gujarat have a break after 1400 BCE, and this also would be a striking match. Then another parallel that we can propose is about the spread of Black and Red Ware that is found in the area of Mathura above Ochre pottery levels around the 1450, 1200 BC. And Wesugi maintains that this ware originated in the area of Bihar, lower middle Ganges Valley, and spread to the Doab. So in the Mahābhārata, we have also in that period the invasion of Jarāsandha repeatedly at Mathura, and it is described the movement of various populations towards the west. So we can suppose that this movement of population had a parallel in the spread of Black and Red Ware from the Gangetic valleys. Here is the map used by Wesugi. And so the period of the Rigveda can be dated in some way. So according to the tradition, the arranger of the Vedas is Krishna Dvaipayana, including the Rigveda. And so it should be a quarter of century before the battle, so around 1500, 1425 BCE. But about the kings mentioned in the poem, the Rigveda is one of the latest. He is placed 5 generations before Parikshit in the genealogy. And so it should be 1570, 1500 BCE if we calculate 20 years per generation, which means per reign. Period of reigning, according to Pargiter, is should be around 18 years. And another king mentioned is Divodasa Titikva, one of the most ancient. So he is also mentioned as contemporary, particularly in Rigveda 647. And Pargiter places him 32 generations before the war. If you calculate 640 years, it should be 2110, 2040 BCE. And Sudās, a near descendant of Divodasa, called Sudasa in the Purān, is placed 27 generations before the battle. And so it should be around 2010, 1940 BCE. Now, Sudās is also associated with the famous battle of the 10 kings, where we find different names of populations. Some are mentioned only here, like Pakthas, Bhalānas. And we have a battle on the Parushni that is identified with the Ravi River. and the battle on the Yamuna on the east. So we have a territory that includes Sarasvati and Satluj valleys. After 1900 BCE, this region was an area of late Harappan settlements, including the cemetery age culture. And in cemetery age, we have two different levels. So the earlier has earth burials, so-called, more similar to the mature Harappan burials, but with some additions like east-west and postures like flexed and with a different pottery, showing, according to Kanoyan, for instance, some shapes similar to vessels from sites in Baluchistan and Afghanistan. So among these peoples, we surely have Western peoples like Pakthas, identified as the Paktus of Herodotus, who are placed near Gandhara and the Kabul River, and Bhalānas that are connected with Bolan Pass in Pakistan at the eastern border of Baluchistan. So also here we can have a trace of these Western people. So actually, sometimes there was this theory of these are the Aryans, but there are different kinds of Aryan. We must be careful to distinguish also the single populations. And we have scientifically the reconstruction of the famous arid period. This was said a lot yesterday. And I focused particularly in particular drought that is reconstructed on the basis of the speleothem from northeast India around 4,000 years ago, so 2000 BC, over the course of approximately a decade. According to Berkeley, Ali is something not seen during the early to mid Holocene. So really something sudden and very drastic. And he also connects this with the urbanization of the Indus Valley. Also because he reconstructs a long period of aridity. Another study of the same site reconstructed an abrupt weakening of the Indian summer monsoon at 4010 years ago, also within a period of around 10 years. And after, we have also multi-decadal weak monsoon events around 3970, 3915 years ago. And so this drought is interesting, particularly this short one, around 10 years, because in the Mahabharata and the Purāns, we often have reference to a drought of 12 years. One is not said that it is of 12 years, but there is this description of a drought connected with Samvarana. And according to Partiter, Samvarana is enemy of Sudās because there is a war with the Panchala king. This Panchala king is not named, but according to Partiter, must be Sudās. And in this context, there is this mention of the drought, or starvation, disease. As you can read here, while Samvarana, son of Riksha, was ruling the earth, there was a very great people. The king was shattered by manifold destructions in this way. Struck by death for starvation, want of rain, diseases, and the troops of the enemies attacked the Bharatas. And so this great drought normally is described as of years, and is also associated with the end of Treta and the beginning of Dvāpara. And so you can see here a very long description. The rivers so shrank in the narrow streamlands everywhere, lakes and wells and springs disappeared. Culture and keep of cattle were given up. Markets and shops were abandoned. Cities and towns of the earth became empty of the inhabitants. Villages and hamlets were burnt down, and so on. So this description can actually be a memory of the great crisis that caused the abandonment of the site. after the urban phase. And also the beginning of the kingdom of Kurus is placed at the beginning of the late Harappan phase. You can see 1950, 1880 BC. And there is a tradition about the fact that in Dvāpara Yuga, Kurukshetra was the main tirtha, and later in Kali Yuga, the Ganges. So the concentration of sites in the area of Sarasvati and Drshadvati can match this idea. And even in the Rigveda, we have a hymn that at the end, 661, says that there is this fear of shortage of water and necessity to go to other places. And so this is the area of the post-urban period. And we can say that the Rigvedic geography coincides with the cemetery age and Bara OCPA. And according to Wesugi, the OCP, the Ochre pottery, also comes from the same tradition. So he puts together a Bara and OCP tradition. And there is this movement towards the east. So the area of the Rigveda can be identified with this kind of culture. Possibly in cemetery age area, there is some influence also from the west. But it is a continuation also of the Harappan. So also because there is no mention of iron in the Rigveda, so there is certainly is before 1000 BCE or 1200 BCE. Also the Sanauli burial that involves Harappan and the Ochre pottery elements shows us a culture that can be similar to Rigvedic culture, because there is a chariot, there are weapons, and also this is described in the Rigveda. And since the Sanauli chariots are dated 1900, 1800 BCE, it would correspond to the age of the early Rigveda according to this chronology. Thank you for your attention.